See, try another. All right. All right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we'll start with our third session of the Power of Habits workshop. In this workshop, what we are basically covering is that how to make habits and how to break habits. So we have already conducted 2 sessions. The first thing that we can do today is to quickly recap what we have done previously. So I'll ask you a few questions. All right. So let's discuss what we have discussed in the previous 2 sessions. All right, who can explain what this experiment was all about? Brother Nasir, do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I kind of remember.
Yeah.
Basically, it was, as the diagram sort of points out, is a mouse, and it was an experiment to see how it reacts, and basically by a click, that was the cue, and then somehow the mouse worked out where the goodies were, in this case the chocolate.
That's right, yeah.
And every time afterwards, whenever it heard that click, it sort of went automatically to its goods, and so it had already created kind of a habit.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I remember. Probably not as clear as how you explained it at that time.
Yeah.
May I add a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
And the key thing in the 2 patterns or graphs in below is that
yeah, so as Brother Nasir mentioned, so this was basically an experiment in which a mouse was trapped in here. And so basically whenever this door used to open, a click sound was made. So whenever that click sound used to come, the mouse would trigger a routine. Initially the mouse did not know where I have to go, and it was all confused, and the brain activity was so high that what's coming up, the mouse did not know. And then it finally figured out that the end of this maze is a piece of chocolate. All right. So when it identified this reward, then every next time when it used to do that, the habit used to get firmer. Okay. And he did not have to think a lot about this thing. Yeah. So initially the mouse had to think a lot, but as he did that thing again and again and again, the brain activity decreased very much. So the mouse did not have to think, and the routine automatically used to execute once the cue used to come. So based on that, scientists came up with an idea, or they identified that whenever a cue is presented to our brains perform certain routine. Whenever we are in a certain emotional state, that's a cue, our brain would trigger certain routines. Whenever we are in a particular situation, our brain would execute certain type of routines. So on a cue is linked to a routine. And we will only remember that routine if it has got a reward at the end. All right. For example, had there been no chocolate, mouse would never have been able to remember that routine. It was only able to remember it because there was a reward involved. So after mouse did that thing for a number of times, we can see the brain activity decreased, but still it is high at the beginning and at the end. So that's what our brains do. The brains are highly active when we are looking for a trigger. As the trigger receives, we automatically execute that trigger, and once it's finished, then it's waiting for the next cue, so that it can do another thing. So based on that, scientists came up with this model, which says that whenever you receive a cue, which can be an emotional state, which can be a physical state, which can be a particular location, on receiving that, you execute a routine. All right. And once you execute that routine, you get a reward. If there is no reward, your brain would likely forget this thing. However, in some cases it happens that even if the reward is removed, the routine would stay. Even if the reward is removed, the routine would stay. Why would that happen? Because we have done that thing so many times that it has got hardwired in our brains. Now, even if there is no cue or there is no reward, we will still be able to do those routines. Yeah. So this is one of the basic concepts that we studied in how habits work. All right. Now, briefly recap what we discussed about how to form habits. So we are seeing 3 examples over here. So Sabir bhai, can you kindly explain one of them? Maybe this one, the Pepsodent one.
It's Q from Q.
Yeah, this one. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, this example is of Pepsodent. When the the doctors basically identified, they made a new product, and then the person who was marketing that, he went to the dentistry books and identified a cue. And the cue was that if you roll your tongue around your teeth, you would find a layer. And if you find that layer, it's a cue, then there would be a routine. They were introducing this toothpaste. Prior to that, in US, no one used to do toothpaste. It was 1950s. As Muslims, we were given this routine 1400 years ago. And Prophet ﷺ mashed it against a cue. Do you remember? Do you know what the cue was for doing the miswak? What was the cue for that? Yeah, prayer. So when you are making wudu, cue, do the routine, so that it would become very automated. And sometimes people don't even have to think that, okay, now I have to do this thing. It becomes so automatic. They automatically do that. So Prophet ﷺ 1400 years ago told us that thing. Yeah. So with the cue, you can attach a routine. In their case, the cue was that layer on the teeth. The routine was brushing your teeth, and then in the toothpaste we have got that tingling feeling. Yeah. They put certain chemicals and certain food acids which can give us that tingling feeling, and that was the reward. Even if we are done with the routine, we still have got that sensation in our mouth, and that is a reward which basically helps us remember that loop. So every morning, without thinking, you have to go. You go to the toilets and washrooms, and you brush your teeth every morning without thinking about it. Yeah. This example, Junaid bhai, can you kindly explain a little bit about this?
That's a Febreze one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, Febreze is an air freshener, and I don't remember. Was it from P&G?
Yeah. It is from P&G. Yeah.
So it's Procter & Gamble introduced Febreze to freshen up the atmosphere of your home.
Correct.
And so that's pretty much it. And you want me to elaborate on this?
Yeah, or maybe
what was the cue?
Yeah.
So the cue was okay. So the cue was, so you want me to go with the whole.
Maybe because we have got some new attendees. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So the cue was that they wanted to add this into the routine, and there was that scientist who formulated a formula which helped in in the aroma thingy.
Okay,
and then they actually developed a marketing strategy for that, and they did their research. And in the beginning, they had some problems in placing that brand into the market. But then they observed the routines of different households. They did a survey, and then they said that once the findings were, once the women they are done with their household chores, they at the end they had to spray this particular thing as a routine. So that was the clue that once you are done cleaning up your house, so you need to add this Febreze thingy.
Correct.
And it will give you a nice feeling.
That's
and
right.
The reward was that you'll get a nice feeling, and then you'll get all the aroma.
You would remember that thing, and you would do that again and again.
Yeah.
So I've forgotten your name, Fadil.
Fadi. F-A-D-I.
Fadi. Okay. So Brother Fadi, what's happening in here is that this is how basically new routines are established. People did not used to brush teeth before that. It was a new routine that they established. They linked it with the cue, then a routine, and then they created a new reward. So everything was new from scratch. So this is one way of creating habits. In this case, what happened? The cue was the house is dirty, I have to clean it. The routine was cleaning the house, and the reward was after they are done, the women were in a certain psychological state that we have accomplished something. And in order to celebrate that thing, they introduced this product Febreze. All right. So what is happening in this case? Using Febreze is a new thing, but what they have done is that they have added it onto an existing routine. So this is the second way of making new habits. One, start from scratch, make new habits. Second, attach the thing that you want to do with something which is already existing. You already go to uni, do something while you're going to uni. Or maybe once you go to the uni, the first thing you can do is to go to maybe a mosque and offer 2 rakas. Yeah. So you can add a new routine onto an existing routine. And this is one of the easiest way of starting new habits. The third one is the story about Alcoholics Anonymous. So Latif, do you remember about this one?
So like Nabil explained, so each habit has a loop, and loop starts with cue, then we have set pattern of actions, which is like we are saying a routine, and the last thing is reward. So first is with the cue, first example, second is with the modifying the reward. The third is where actually you can replace the routine, the actions you are doing. When you receive the same kind of cue, and at the end you get same reward, but you actually replace the set pattern or action or the actions part you do. So here the example, in this example, so there were alcoholic people, and they to just cure that habit, people made a kind of society or gathering, and they would actually listen to the person. So what is the cue? A person is sad and he wants to drink so that he can forget about the difficulties of the life. So what they did, they replaced the alcohol with a few people which will discuss with them all the things. So they will get, they will forget actually those sad things, and so that alcohol was replaced with discussion. Yeah, counseling. Yes, that's it.
So same cue, they are depressed, they are sad. So previously when they were sad, they used to go for drink, but now they used to go to that person, talk their heart out, and after the end of both the routines, they used to feel like they have forgotten their pain. So the same reward, but the routine they have changed. So what is the practical aspect of discussing these examples? So these are the three ways in which we can form new habits. If you want to develop some good habit, you can look for a new cue, a new routine, and a new reward. That is one way. The second way is that new good habit, maybe for example going to gym or whatever it is, you can add it into an existing routine. Or the third thing is that if you have a bad habit, maybe if you come home, you spend 45 minutes on WhatsApp or maybe Facebook, you can replace that routine with something else. So that is another way. So these are the three ways in which you can form good habits. Who remembers about this graph? Ability versus motivation. So yes.
Yeah. So you can perform a habit based on these two things. One is motivation and other is ability. So if your motivation level is way high, so even you have less ability, you can still do that habit. And same on the other side, if you don't think that this particular habit is difficult and you can do very easily, so that's mean ability. You have very good ability of doing that habit, so you will do that. But there is a particular optimum point which is shown by the star, where the habit can be made or developed.
Yeah. So very rightly explained. So just maybe I'll quickly explain it. Like motivation and ability. Like if you got, as Latif explained, if you got very high motivation, even if the thing is hard or difficult, you will still be able to do that. For example, if your life is in danger, it's a very hard thing to escape that, but your motivation is very high, you will still go for that behavior. Or if something is very easy, but there is low motivation, it is likely that you can still go into that. But for all other combinations, there is an optimum level. We have to cross this line in order to have that behavior. Even if the cue is there, we won't go for that routine unless we have got the right coordinates for this.
There's a very funny example with this. So if someone is scared of dogs and doesn't run usually, but if there is a dog nearby and it's barking, and that person will run for life.
Yeah. Latif? Alrighty. So that's very rightly explained. Alright, so who remembers this one? Mohsin bhai, do you remember this graph? Alrighty, yeah. So it's basically about frequency and perceived utility. Alright, I'll explain this one. So the habit would form if we have right combination of frequency and perceived utility. Alright. If something is very important for you, if something you highly regard and you consider it to be very important and its utility is very high, you would develop that habit. Alright. Even if you don't do it very often. Is it clear? Even if you don't do it very often, if something is very important to you, you would develop that routine. On the other hand, I think it's the picture quality, yeah.
Sabir bhai is having difficulties.
No, it's not.
Can you do it? Can you
Or maybe Sabir bhai, you can come in front of this one here. Nasir bhai, Nasir, Sabir bhai would come and join you. नहीं यहाँ पे वो गर्म होगा बहुत. It would be very hot. Sorry, we keep switching into Urdu language sometimes. I hope you can bear with that. All right, so this graph I think is very, very important. We did have some discussion on that. If you do something very, very frequently, even if its perceived utility is very low, but you are doing it so frequently, it will become your habit. For example, some people have got habit of scratching their head. Does it have any benefit? No. But it would become your habit if you do it all the time. Or if some people have got habits of doing these knuckles things. So it has no benefit, but it would become their habit if they do it at a very high frequency. Yeah. Similarly, if something is very important, they consider it to be of high utility, but they don't do it very often, they would still develop that habit. For all other combinations, so these are the extreme cases. For all other combinations, they have to be in this habit zone. If something has got low utility and low frequency, you won't remember that, and you won't memorize that habit. So this is what we studied in this graph. 20-second rule. Who can explain that? Wasim, did you attend this one, the 20-second rule?
No, I didn't attend the complete session.
Okay, alright. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it's something to do with if you want to create a certain habit, then make sure the items that for example, I'll take the example of reading, make sure that there's a book not far from your reach.
Correct,
so
yeah.
That'll be sort of triggered and you'll be able to access that
That's
within
right.
20 seconds.
That's correct, yeah.
Something like that.
That's correct. So it is about,
On the flip
yeah.
side, if you want to
Avoid something, yeah.
then keep the cues away.
Correct.
At least few minutes or.
That's right,
If you're
yeah.
a smoker, then
Keep that cigarette away.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it should be 20 seconds away. If it is too far away, then last time we discussed that some people, because of their craving, can have that like a need to go for that thing. But just keep it within sight. Yeah, you know it's there, but because it's 20 seconds away, you have to make an effort. So you would likely avoid it. Our brain likes to avoid effort. That is why it makes habits, so that it does not have to think, it automatically executes. So if it is far away, you can still see that, but you have to go 20-30 seconds to get it, you would likely avoid that. And same is the case as Latif mentioned with the good habits. You want to develop the habit of reading books, just keep it next to you. Make it easy for you to do that. And this is basically based on a hadith. Now these are all new concepts, but these are basically based on, like, if we look at them Islamically, all of them have got roots in the religion. For example, Prophet ﷺ said that make marriage easy and make adultery difficult. So the things that you want to do, make them easy. And the things that you want to avoid, make them difficult for you. Alright? So 20-second rule. The next concept we studied was regarding small wins. Small wins. We did discuss an example of a person who wanted to do 70 push-ups a day. And for many months he kept thinking about that and he could not start that.
is that baby steps?
Yes, it is baby steps, yeah. So then that person thought that let me make it simple and let me chunk it down into very small parts. So that person said that every time I come back from the washroom, I'll do 2 push-ups. Do you need a lot of motivation to do 2 push-ups? No, you don't. So he could easily do 2 push-ups. And then he used to tell himself, I'm not tired yet. So let me do a few more. So he used to do maybe 10, and he used to go to toilet 7 or 8 times a day, depending on how much he drank, and then he could easily do 70 to 80. So these baby steps can really help us. They require low motivation, and we can ultimately get things done. This graph is another very important graph. This is about motivation. Yeah. So our motivation does not remain the same. There are highs and lows in our motivation. Sometimes we are highly motivated, and sometimes we are at the very bottom. So what can we do? What can we understand from this graph? When we are in the high motivation phase, that is an opportunity that Allah has provided us to do great things. When you are in that high motivation, think of something big and do that big thing. But there would be times when your motivation would be very low because of a number of factors. Something has happened, or you are very tired, or you are mentally exhausted, or those sort of things. So when you are in the low, what you can do to protect yourself? Form habits. Form habits. What would happen because of that? Your brain would not be required to think about what you are doing. You have got a good habit, even without thinking you would be doing that. So it would help you in that low motivation stage. If you do not have a habit, well-developed habit of offering prayer, if you are too tired or in some state of mind, you wouldn't offer the prayer. But if you have got a well-developed routine, whatever the time, whatever the situation, you would still go on to the prayer. You're very angry with someone and then you hear the adhan, you would go and offer the prayer. Yeah. So this is the theory of motivation. But in order to do these things, you also need some willpower. So then we studied these three concepts about the willpower. And there are various experiments. I'll not go into much detail about them, but the summary of it is that our willpower, we have got certain resource, we can expand that by perseverance, and through perseverance as well as through practice. So if we practice and increase our willpower, it would help us achieve better things in life. We did discuss another concept of complementary habits. So, and I'll quickly recap that one. And this was the story of a person who basically is a very motivated individual himself, and he heard somewhere that it was sunnah of Prophet ﷺ to wake up at night and offer prayer. So he thought that our Prophet used to do that, I'll never leave it now. So he started to offer tahajjud every day. And he also came to know that it is sunnah of the Prophet not to sleep after Fajr. So he said, no, I'll not sleep after Fajr now. So he was waking up at night, not sleeping after Fajr. And he had a lot of time. He thought, what should I do with this time? So he started to go to his office early. Goes to office maybe around 6 a.m. and by 11 a.m. he was done. And he was so happy, now I've got the whole day left and my work is done. I can do a lot of things in life. So a few days this worked very well. But then he started to get exhausted. And he used to be very sleepy all the time. Then he came to know that the Prophet ﷺ also had a complementary habit which used to facilitate him in offering tahajjud. And that was Kailula. And there is a hadith as well which says that give yourself strength through Kailula for the remembrance at night. So that is the complementary habit that he was missing. The practical aspect of it, if you want to develop a particular habit, you may be required to develop certain complementary habits that can help you get there.
Just one question.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So, like, if you have complementary habits, so you need to give the same motivation to develop the complementary habit or same power or same willpower, whatever.
Yes.
And then you focus on the main habit.
Correct. Yeah.
So sometimes you focus on complementary habit and then you forgot your main,
Yep.
the main motivation
Yep.
or main habit.
Correct. So
How we can do that?
that would basically link to the anchoring. Like, why do we want to do that? If something is important for you, your brain would not forget that. But if you have not made your brain realize its true importance or the true perceived utility, then the brain would likely forget that thing. So this thing has to be high for your brain to remember that thing. I often, like, my kid forgets things very easily. And I ask him that if something is not important for you, you would forget that. You would not forget eating food. You would not forget programming on your computer. But you would forget your things everywhere. And you would forget doing something that I asked you to do. Why does it happen? Because in his mind, the perceived utility or the importance of that thing is not clear. He thinks that it's something unimportant, that's fine. So we will remember that if we clarify ourselves its importance. And then we also discuss some enablers which we can't cover now, but it is available in the videos as well as in the presentation, which we can go through and discuss. Alright, now quickly recapping what we discussed in terms of how to break habits. Alright, so the first thing we said was avoid the cues. We have just discussed, Brother Fadi, are you getting what we are saying? Yeah. So we discussed that habits are formed because of cues, routines and rewards. So what is the first thing in the cycle? Cue. If you can avoid the cue, or if you could break the routine after the cue, you can break that habit. For example, some examples from Islamic perspective, lowering the gaze. What is happening there? You received a cue, but now you are not letting that cue transform into a routine, or you are preventing yourself from looking at the cue, your eyes are down. Alright? So that's lowering the gaze. Staying in good company and among good friends. So even if you receive a cue, or maybe that way you can avoid the cue. If you are alone or if you are in a bad company, you can do certain bad habits. So you can avoid that cue by staying in good company and be with good friends. So that is another way of avoiding the cue at all. The second aspect can be replace the cue, replace the routine that follows the cue. For example, last time we discussed about the 2 rakah solution, in which a sheikh mentioned that whenever you do anything bad, you smoke a cigarette or something, immediately make a fresh wudu, even if you have got wudu, and offer 2 rakahs. So what he's doing is he's trying to replace a set routine with a different routine, or adding a routine into an existing one. We discussed the example of Alcoholics Anonymous. They have also done is that they have replaced an existing routine, as we just discussed, the routine of drinking with the routine of socializing. Third example we discussed was of a girl who used to bite her nails a lot, and in that case also doctors replaced that routine with another beneficial routine. The third method of replacing a routine is to change the reward. How does our brain remember the routine? When it receives certain pleasure. But if we replace that pleasure with some sort of a pain or some sort of a mental consequence, our brain would likely forget the routine. For example, from the Islamic perspective, repentance is one thing. Whenever you have executed that routine, you should repent, and also like you should feel bad about what you have done, and that way the brain would likely forget that routine. Breaking the craving. We discussed various aspects in which Islam has guided us to break the craving. For example, visiting the graveyards, remembering death often, and these sort of things. All these things break craving. If it's a bad craving, we should break that. But if it's something good, we should develop that craving. For example, if it's like coming to mosque, we should develop a craving to come to that place again and again. If it's like coming to ICANN workshops, we should develop that craving to come back again and again. So for the good things, we can develop the craving. So even if there's no cue or there's no reward, if you've got a craving developed, it would push you to execute that thing again and again. Yeah. The last thing about breaking the habits we discussed, blocking the means that lead to routine. Something in itself is not bad. Something in itself is not bad, but it can lead to bad things, so you can stop that thing. For example, going to a restaurant where a lot of people drink on the weekend in itself is not a haram thing. You can go there and you should not drink anything, you just eat your food and you come back. In itself it's okay. But if it leads you to do something, takes you to a situation where you yourself do something bad, then we should avoid that too. Yeah. For example, another example is like selling grapes is not haram. But if you sell grapes to a winemaker who would then make a product which is harmful to humanity out of that, then it is better to avoid that thing. So Islamically we call this term the saddu dharaya, blocking of the means. So these are the 5 ways in which we can break any bad habit. So we have also got worksheets available which you can use and work on your own habits that you want to break and find some solutions. Alrighty, so from now we will start our today's lecture or today's thing. Today we will talk about the habits of organizations and habits of communities. Okay. So we'll start with habits of organizations first. And the first thing we are going to discuss is the story of Alcoa. Have you heard of this company? So can someone explain what this company is all about? What do they do?
I think it's partly the name.
Yeah.
It's to do with metals, but I think specifically aluminium.
Correct.
And they're based in the United States, and they've been, I think, around for a very long time.
That's right. Yeah. Correct. So good explanation. This company basically deals with aluminium. So it's a process industry and has been here for more than a century. Yeah. It also operates in Australia though. So at one point in time, this industry was really profitable, very profitable, and investors used to love this company. They used to buy its share, and that used to give them big returns. But then gradually, the company went into a little bit of a decline. So what they did is that they replaced their CEO. They brought a new CEO, and the house full of investors was waiting for him to give his first speech. And they were all expecting, what do the companies operate for? Now, what do you think? Why do companies exist? What do they do? Make business, make money, yeah, reduce costs, like increase profits, these sort of things, increase stakeholder value. That is what you are expecting to hear as a stakeholder. That the new CEO has come and he would say that I'll increase the margins that you would get. You would get more shares, you would get more rewards, more returns. This is what they're expecting. Yes. But the CEO came and gave his first speech. And he said, today I want to talk to you about safety. We have to improve safety at Alcoa. And that sort of thing. And everyone was surprised at what is happening here. Nothing about cost, nothing about shareholder value, nothing. He's just talking about safety. What is this thing? So once he finished his speech, people ran out of the room. And it was as if almost a stampede. They were just running over each other, just trying to go out of the room as soon as possible. One of the persons immediately called his subordinate. Please sell immediately all the shares that we have from Alcoa. The company is not going to give us anything. They have hired a madman who has not talked about stakeholder value at all. He's just talking about safety. He's so stupid. So that person sold all its shares. But 1 year later, that person said that it was the worst mistake in my life that I ever did, because the company's profit went out of the roof. How did it happen? He was just focusing on safety. But the thing is that it rippled, and its effects rippled onto the other areas as well. So when the person used to say that, I want suggestions from you, how we can improve safety on this machine. So people immediately thought that, yeah, he can come anytime and ask about suggestions. So let's put a suggestion box in here. And they asked everyone that please come and put suggestions in there so that we can improve the machine safety. So people not only gave suggestions about safety, they also gave suggestions about quality. They also gave suggestions about how to reduce costs and all those things. So that way they had that influx of ideas from people. And then whenever anything used to go wrong, he would say that now I want a complete solution for that. So once a person got sprayed with a little bit of aluminum and got some burns, he said that I want a complete solution. So people redesigned the equipment completely and all that sort of thing. So what happened? Now the liquid never used to come out. Waste reduced, quality improved, no contamination, nothing going into the smelter, nothing coming out of it. So all these things improved. So what is this concept called? This concept.
How to survive whole year? The question is because the people were selling their shares.
Yeah. No,
So
some
that
people.
whole year, how
Yeah.
the
Some people sold and some people didn't. Yeah. And those who did, and they thought later on that it was the worst mistake we ever did. The company very soon started to pick up back again, and the profits like really increased. This concept is called the keystone habit. He did not focus on everything, that improve your quality, improve your safety, improve your cost, improve this, improve that, improve that.
only one factor.
He picked one factor, and then wholeheartedly, least resistance part. Because exactly, no one used to say no to anything related to safety. Everyone wanted to be safe. They were labor unions, which also did not resist anything. He said, no, I cannot compromise with you on safety. But in effect, everything was improving. Quality, cost, everything. So this concept is called the keystone habits. Keystone habits. So there are 2 points about keystone habits that I would request you to read. Maybe Nasir, if you could kindly read this one.
To read it.
Yeah.
Keystone habits say that success doesn't depend on getting every single thing right, but instead relies on identifying a few key priorities and fashioning them into powerful levers. Correct.
So these were the levers that they created. Now based on hinging on safety, everything else improved as well. This concept is called keystone habit. Fadi, can you kindly read this one?